Hi, and welcome to our webcast for September 29, 2019.
20th.
20th September 20th. Sorry. My name is Christian Ray, and this is Amy Asbourg, the director of Toujours Vivant, Not Dead Yet.
Hello.
Also joining us, Taylor Hyatt, okay, our outreach coordinator and policy analysis. Okay, you have seen it. Sorry. Toujours Vivant Not Dead Yet is a non-religion organization by and for people with disabilities and our allies. Our goal is to inform, unify, and give voice to the disability rights opposition to assisted suicide, euthanasia, and other against people with disabilities. The family of British Columbia man contest is eligibility for euthanasia. And Amy Asbourg will help us through this treatment.
I will do my best anyway. Okay, so this week we're looking at the family of a British Columbia man contests his eligibility for euthanasia. This week we're looking at the events surrounding the death of a British Columbia man who was euthanized in July. According to the man's family, healthcare professionals failed to identify the medical assistance in dying request as arising from a history of mental illness and wrongly determined his death was reasonably foreseeable. We received this family's testimony from the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition, which is now helping in their call for a formal investigation into his death.
We have to remember, whatever happened in this case, the doctor will not be convicted,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
Because he just have to say, I was thinking that was the patient need, what the patient need, what the patient wants,
Yeah.
and that's it. There's no suit possible against him.
Right. So the idea of bringing inquiry is to find out if they were, at least try to find out if they were complying with the safeguards, but at least draw some public attention. Alan Nichols had mobility, hearing, and visual impairments, as well as a brain injury from childhood cancer that caused some cognitive and psychiatric limitations. He had been living independently with some informal support from his brothers, Wayne, who took him shopping every week, and Gary, who helped him manage his finances. He retired after a long career working for a local school district and a plant nursery, receiving financial support from his family as well as a pension. In his free time, Mr. Nichols enjoyed traveling, fishing, and hiking.
So he was very active.
He was a pretty active kind of guy. He had some mobility issues, but not, extreme. Mr. Nichols' decision to stop taking antidepressants and other medications caused instability and, according to his brothers, led him to make some poor choices for himself.
It happened to many people
Right.
who do that kind of thing. When they feel okay, they say, I don't need any more medication. That's
Right.
the trouble.
Right, exactly. And they make poor choices.
Yeah.
Mr. Nichols would sometimes threaten to harm himself by not eating, though his brother Wayne noticed that the groceries he bought each week were all eaten and that Alan never lost weight. So even though he said he was going to stop eating, he actually didn't. He was reluctant to use a walker or mobility scooter and refused to use assistive devices to improve his vision and hearing. He did not live with pain, so he wasn't having physical pain.
Extreme pain of whatever source.
Right. In June of 2019, Mr. Nichols was struggling to adapt to some significant life changes. His brother Wayne was planning to travel across Canada and so wouldn't be available to take Alan shopping for several weeks. A favorite neighbor was preparing to move away, and the grocery store where he shopped had recently closed. So he was facing 3 disruptions in his life. That really threw him for a loop, basically.
Yeah.
The events leading up to his death began on June 16th, when Alan's neighbor realized that she had not seen him for a few days. She informed Wayne and called the RCMP to check on him. The officers found Alan weakened from not eating or drinking and contacted Wayne to tell him that Alan was being admitted to the local hospital for his own health and safety. When Gary...
What the heck?
Right.
For his own safety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When his brother Gary visited from Edmonton, Alan asked to be busted out of the hospital. Alan was transferred to the psychiatric unit on June 17th, but refused visits from his brother.
It's obvious that his brother doesn't comply to his demand.
Taylor?
Yes. This is a topic for another day, but it's worth noting how he started in the psychiatric unit and how ill-equipped those facilities are for assisting people with all kinds of disabilities, even the psychiatric ones. Often the most obvious place you would think to go for help when you're in crisis mode like that would only cause more problems.
Yeah. Okay.
That's okay. That's okay.
Oh, okay. During his hospital stay, Mr. Nichols said his hearing aid didn't work properly, so staff used a whiteboard and marker to communicate with him. After multiple calls and emails asking for an update, Gary was informed on June 27th that Alan had been transferred a week earlier to the Patient Assessment and Transition to Home Unit, or PATH unit.
Transition to home.
Yeah,
that's nice.
To home. Gary emailed and phoned the PATH unit looking for information on his brother's condition. So he'd already been there a week, and Gary wanted an update.
Yeah.
But was told that Alan's doctor was away on vacation. He was able to speak to a social worker who said that Alan was eating, walking, talking, visiting with others on the ward, and that he was doing well.
Still active.
Right. There was no mention of an application for medical assistance in dying. Okay, so this is... Gary tried to get in touch to find out what was going on. Alan's physician called Gary on July 22nd, more than a month after he ended up in the hospital, and told him of the medical assistance in dying request 4 days before the euthanasia was scheduled.
Only 4 days.
Right.
Oh.
Right. That was the first they heard about this. And the first time they talked to a doctor about what was going on with Alan. Gary's wife, Trish, spoke to the doctor that same afternoon. She explained that Alan's desire to die probably stemmed from unaddressed depression and anger. The doctor stated that although Alan's health had improved since being admitted to the hospital, he had a legal right to medical assistance in dying.
Which is not true.
Well, yeah, it is.
We doesn't think it is true.
We don't think he was eligible. So that's the issue.
Yeah. And the doctor was informed that he suffered from depression.
Right. They knew he had a history of depression.
Yeah.
The doctor had asked Alan several times if ending his life was what he really wanted to do, and was met with a yes response each time.
That's happened with people with
right.
depression. Yes. Yeah.
Although the doctor did not believe death was the best course of action, she gave him the application forms. Once the request for euthanasia was approved, no one but Alan could stop it. Alan's brothers later learned that his doctor was not part of the team that determined him eligible. Because she was away. She was on vacation. So
and there was no emergency to kill this guy, whatever happened, because they should have to wait for the doctor.
Right.
His doctor.
Right. Hospital staff were able to convince Alan to see his family before he died. So Alan celebrated his 62nd birthday on July 23rd. His aunt sent him flowers, Staff provided a cake, and his brothers called to wish him a happy birthday. The day before his death, Alan's brother Gary and sister-in-law Trish visited him, arriving from Edmonton, and met his social worker. Gary said he planned to move closer to Alan after retiring next year. Alan's family noticed that he often looked to the social worker for reassurance when answering questions and for confirmation that nothing would get in the way of the euthanasia. They wondered if this meant that the decision to die was not really his. On the day of Mr. Nichols' euthanasia, he didn't seem to care that his family was present. He didn't talk and only shrugged when the nurse said it would be necessary to try again to find a vein for the injection. And that's kind of behavior that's typical of somebody who's feeling depressed.
Yeah.
Wouldn't look at messages his family wrote on the white. Then he became agitated and shouted, "It's too late. This is my moment." When the doctor arrived, the family expressed their concerns about the lack of support Alan had received for his psychological condition. The doctor said, "We cannot legally stop people from making bad choices, and we should not judge Alan for this." Taylor?
She's right.
Okay.
Every adult should have the freedom to make bad choices. For example, there wasn't a single vegetable on my dinner plate last night, but she's wrong when it comes to choices of this degree. Choosing death is you can't take that back.
Right. And the person has to be determined capable of making a life or death decision. And though they determined that he was capable, that's what their family is bringing into question. Alan's family asked to spend as much time with him as possible to explore alternative living arrangements and even opportunities available in the cities where his relatives lived. When his doctor told Alan that his family, quote, would like to try to rebuild their relationship with you, unquote, Alan again became angry, saying the doctor was no longer on his side and that his brothers were not blood relatives, which was not true. And again, that should have raised some red flags for some people.
The doctor not on his side, being the doctor doesn't want him to go at home.
Right. Even after calming down, Alan continued to demand that the euthanasia be done immediately. He received a lethal injection around 10 a.m. on July 26, 2019. The primary cause of death listed on Mr. Nichols' medical certification of death was medical assistance in dying, with the underlying conditions listed including a stroke that he had had years before, from which he had already recovered. Yeah. A seizure disorder for which he had not needed medications for nearly 15 years and had not had any seizures for 10 years.
Oh, only 10 years.
Right. And 2 brain tumors that were surgically removed 50 years ago.
Only 50 years.
Yeah. So this is what they're calling the underlying condition.
This guy was dying, it's obvious.
The Nichols brothers discovered that Alan's euthanasia had initially been scheduled for July 19th. According to the family, the nurse practitioner who was to perform the injection stopped the procedure at the last minute because she was concerned about the lack of contact with Alan's family, the absence of his doctor, who was on vacation at the time, and a lack of documentation of his final wishes in a will. Alan did not have a will or advance directive, a power of attorney naming a substitute decision maker, or other document outlining his wishes before he applied for medical assistance in dying. According to the family, the organization that managed the hospital insisted that a will was necessary in order to access medical assistance in dying. It was drawn up in the hospital on July 12th in the presence of the hospital social worker, and a local notary was made the executor. The brothers were only able to meet with the notary after Alan's death, though the notary also found it strange that none of Alan's loved ones were contacted beforehand or listed as executors. He told Gary that nothing could be done. Mr. Nichols' family is now seeking the assistance of a lawyer to obtain the documents related to his case, especially the doctor's review of the euthanasia procedure. They believe Alan Nichols was ineligible for medical assistance in dying for several reasons. One is that he was incapable of making a decision due to his psychiatric condition, external stressors, anger, and suicidal feelings. That he did not experience pain or discomfort that rose to the level of intolerable suffering. That his condition was not in an advanced state of irreversible decline. Natural death was not reasonably foreseeable. And those are 4 eligibility criteria. And even if we eliminate the death not being reasonably foreseeable and advanced state of irreversible decline that were eliminated by the Quebec court last week, we still have the question of his psychiatric disability and whether he had intolerable suffering. But since intolerable suffering is a judgment left to the individual, that's...
And as far as we know, he was not suffering.
Right. But again, you know, it's up to him to decide if he's suffering intolerably.
Oh, poor me.
Yeah. Our society's emphasis on institutional care may also have contributed to Alan Nichols' death. He would have been an ideal candidate for a legally recognized supported decision-making arrangement, but his brother's efforts to become his guardian had failed, and the resulting informal arrangement, while workable in the normal course of things, failed under stress. The result was that medical staff did not consult with the people who helped him to maintain his stable and independent lifestyle when making a life or death decision. And both Alan's family and doctors encouraged him to try living in a residential facility as the obvious solution to his isolation and difficulty in caring for himself. He resisted, preferring to hang on to his autonomy and spontaneity he had in his own home.
Like many, many, many old people.
Right. That's a very common and understandable reaction. Other supported independent living models should replace institutional care as the default option. So instead of going to residential care as the first choice, we need to think of something else as the first choice. Go ahead, Taylor.
So why should needing support disqualify someone from making decisions to that degree? We all need that on some level. We all seek advice from professionals, family, or friends. And I don't think any one of us could say that we have the complete picture on all our lives. And this mindset seems to come from a belief that decisions are made in isolation. Regardless of your disability, that's just bizarre.
Yeah, I agree. Technically, he was his own guardian and he made his own decisions, and that's great, except for the fact that the medical staff didn't take into account that he was receiving support. He already was in a supported decision-making arrangement. It just wasn't recognized. Yeah. It's tragic when a person kills themselves for whatever reason. We continue to believe that society should not step in and facilitate that irrevocable final act. And we wonder where the organizations that are supposed to be preventing suicides are.
It will blow to their face very, very, very soon.
Blow up in their face.
Yep.
Okay, so if you want more information about the subjects that we talk about here, you can visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/toujours vivant, not dead yet. Visit our website at tvndy.ca. You can email us at info@tv-ndy.ca, or you can follow us on Twitter @TVNDY. Thanks to Christian for helping out, and to
Thank
Taylor
you.
as well, and thank you for being there. Bye.
Bye.